What if I told you there was a plugin for GarageBand that combines an EQ, a mixer, a compressor and limiter, the ability to sidechain, and creates a master track for you to adjust your overall volume in GarageBand? You'd want to know more about it, and that's what we're going to talk about in this video. Let's go. The plugin in question is AudioScope from 4Pockets, and as much as it sounded like I was overselling it in the intro, it does that and a whole lot more. It's a monitoring and visualization app, but it gives you so much control that it's probably going to become the new way you're going to mix your projects in GarageBand. Now, AudioScope is an AUv3, an audio unit plugin, which means you can use it in any host you like. I'm going to use it here in GarageBand because I think that's where it adds the most value. To add it, we select a track, we hit the edit button here, hit on one of the green plus buttons, go over to audio unit extensions and tap on AudioScope. Now there are two instances when you buy and download and install this app. We're going to choose AudioScope. And yes, AudioScope is a paid app. You can jump over to the App Store. It's about $10 to $15 depending where you are in the world, but you get a lot of bang for your buck as you're about to find out. In its simplest form, we can add AudioScope to a single track here in our project, and we can use the EQ and the mixer and the compressor. We can use the visualizations to see what's going on, and that in itself is pretty handy here in GarageBand because we don't have any sort of metering in GarageBand per se. So this is already going to give you a bunch of stuff you don't already have. Let's solo this guitar track, jump into AudioScope and take a look around. So the first thing we've got over here is an EQ, and we can adjust the different frequencies by just adjusting these bars. So this is a very easy and quick way to get a bit of EQ onto our track. There's a mixer here as well. That's got a whole lot of stuff we can show you, but we want to add some other tracks before we do that. We've got a shelf here, so we can actually use this as a shelf at the top or the bottom end. It's another form of EQ. We've got our peak here, so we can actually add and use this as a peak EQ, a parametric EQ, by touching and adding different frequencies here. And we've got a compressor at the end here with perhaps the best interface I've ever seen. So there's a whole bunch of stuff going on there already. Now, we're only going to scratch the surface in this video, but if you want more information, we've got videos to Paul's series. Paul from 4Pockets has been through a lot of the stuff, and there's a heap of great information in those, and you can check those out in the description. Now, before we start playing with this, we're going to double tap on all of these that we've created just to get rid of them, and do the same over here because we don't want these settings before we start playing with our track. Now we can hit play, and let's take a listen to this guitar and see if we can make some adjustments using the EQ. There we go. Just a little boost in the top end is going to work for this one. Let's grab the shelf now, shall we? And see if we want to do anything with this. So maybe we want to reduce the low end here. We can do that. And maybe we want to give it a little bit of a top end shelf. We can do that up the top here. Nice and meaty there. We can jump in here to our peak EQ. So this is a parametric EQ that we can start adding to. So if we wanted to say, find a frequency and do a bit of sweeping here to find out what frequency we might want to adjust, we'll just tap and drag to find our spot there and hit the play button and take a listen. And you can very quickly find the frequencies that maybe you don't like and drop those down. There's also options to use two fingers to pinch and drag to adjust your Q settings. Once again, a heap more information in the other videos linked below. And we've got a compressor. Now, this is probably the best compressor that I've seen in any app, let alone an app that does a whole bunch of other stuff too, because you can see a visual representation here of your attack and your release. If you've never really known what attack and release do here on a compressor, this is it. So you can set your attack to be really fast, meaning it will start compressing really quickly when it requires it, when it hits that threshold. And then you've got your release, which is how quickly it lets go of that compression once it hits that point. You've got your threshold here, which you can really quickly visualize when it's going to compress. Now, that all sounds good, but it's much easier to understand if we demonstrate it. So let's hit play on this guitar and add some compression. So you can see and hear there that as I get closer to those peaks, it's actually going to start chopping those off. Now, don't worry that the volume goes down. That's what compression's actually supposed to do. You've got makeup gain easily accessible over here on the right. And if you're wondering where your ratio is, it's down here. So we can tap our ratio and go anywhere from 2 to 1 up to basically unlimited if you want to use this more as a limiter. So let's just put the compression around that 12 to 1 and hit the play button. And you can hear there that it's flattening that out. Now, we probably don't want to use a compressor too much for this guitar, so it's probably not the best one to demonstrate. We will probably use some compression on the vocals when we get to that. Now, that's a lot of stuff, right? Yeah, that's a lot, but there's a whole lot more, and AudioScope really comes into its own when you add in multiple tracks, because you can actually use this app. I've kind of buried the lead. You can use this app to control all of your tracks without having to jump between them. It's as cool as it sounds. Let's show you that now. So at the moment, I've added AudioScope just to this single track. It's my left guitar, but what I can do is I can add an instance of AudioScope to all 6 tracks in this project. And if you've got a project with 32 tracks, you can add 32 instances of it. But then you control it all from one interface. Yeah, it works really, really well. What we need to do to start this is go into our first instance of AudioScope. And as you can see at the top here, we've got this. We've got the control. We're going to tap on that one, and we're going to actually rename this one. So if we come down to the name, we can actually rename this first one. We're going to type in Git and all because it's our left guitar, and we're going to hit set. And what that's going to do is it's going to add that as our first control. So we now know if we're in here and we want to control our guitar, we just need to go to the guitar left. Now look what happens when I come to another track here, say this right guitar, and I add this one in. Let's hit edit, let's hit the plus button, audio extensions, AudioScope. Now, before I actually add this, quick tip, what you want to do is hit the edit button here and drag this to the very bottom. This should be the last one, especially if you want to use it as a compressor or a limiter. You want it right at the end of your chain. So you can do that, hit done, jump into AudioScope. Now what you'll notice is we've still got that guitar, but we've got this second instance. So what we can now do is jump over here, hit the rename button, and you guessed it, we're going to type Git and right. So we've now got ourselves 2 different instances. Now, I'm going to go ahead and do this for all the others. I'll do one more for you here, and then I'll get them all set up off camera so you don't have to watch each and every one. The good news is once you do it once, you don't have to do it again. It's all going to be set up for you. So let's grab this one. We're going to hit plus. We're going to hit the plus button here. We're going to go to Audio Unit Extension, AudioScope. Again, edit and drag it to the bottom. Make sure it's the last thing in our chain. Tap on it there. There is our controls. We want to make sure we select this new one and then go over here to the name, and we're going to name this one, which is our drums, I think. Let's put drums in there and we'll see if I was correct. So we'll name that one. We'll come out here and it was actually bass, but no problem because we can rename it. We can come back into here and our control, our name there. It wasn't drums. It was indeed bass. So let me add the rest of these, and then I'll show you some cool things we can do before we finish off once we have all these added in. Now we're towards the end here, but I've hit one where I don't have any free slots. Now this is something you may come across. For me, I usually remove this effect EQ one and then just add it in there. So you may have to sacrifice something, but you're probably going to find AudioScope will replace other things like EQs or compressors that you would have been using anyway. So we can add it in there and then jump in and name that one. We are all set. So to show you how this looks now, if we go to our plugins and EQ and we hit this button here, at the bottom of every one of these tracks, we have an instance of AudioScope, and this can be across any track, MIDI, drummer, voice track, whatever you've got there. Here's the good news. This is the special secret sauce of AudioScope. If we tap on any one of these instances now, you'll notice that we've got control over any of these that we like, and we can actually mix these in together. Yeah, you wonder what that mix was all about? Well, that's what we're going to show you now. So let's hit the expand button here so we can have a nice view of this setup. So what we want to do now is we want to add in all of our different instruments. So what we can do is tap and hold on this mix button, and look at that. There's our guitar now. And this is like a 3D space. We can actually move this guitar around up and down in volume, and also to the left and the right. There's even a stereo Widener built in for every track. I told you this had everything. Yeah, it's amazing. We can then do the same for the rest of our instruments. So to do that, if we tap here, let's find our right guitar, and we'll tap and hold on the mix button, and there it is. And what we can start doing is actually start doing our panning here. Now, yes, you can pan in GarageBand, but this gives you really good panning control at the same time as you're mixing. So it just means you can do everything here, and you can track and monitor your mix at the same time using those peak EQs and using the visualizations. Because remember, it's called AudioScope. It's supposed to help you actually view your audio as well as do all these changes. So with these two guitars set here now, let's hit the play button and play around with a little bit of volume, but also see if we can separate these out to the left and the right.
Pain while others bleed out. You better watch out. Forward.
So there you go. We put the guitars to the left and the right. And you can see with those little spinny things there, that's telling you that there's audio playing there. There's a very cool thing that does as well for your peaking, which I'll show you in just a moment. But if we come out here, let's just solo these two tracks now, and you'll hear as we play, there's our guitar on the left, and there's our guitar on the right. And these aren't being controlled by our panning here. They're both down the middle, but because we're using AudioScope on both of these, we can control the panning completely from here. Let's add in the rest of our tracks and continue. Once again, let's go to our control. We'll select the bass. We'll tap and hold on the mix button here and add our bass. The bass, I think we need the bass a little louder so we can pump up the bass a little bit there. Let's again go to our control, grab the drums, and tap and hold on mix. There's our drums, and then just do this for our vocals. Vocals, tap and hold on mix. And remember, you do this once. We'll just put those down a bit just so you can see everything here. You do this once, and then it's done. So then you can save it. It'll save the state, and there's a whole bunch more you can do. Again, go watch the other videos, but there's a bunch more you can do with all the options down here in terms of a different view and a different display for this mix. But for the basic first look demo here, this is what we're going with. So everything's set up there. Now when we hit play, we've only got those guitars because we've got them soloed out here. So we need to make sure everything's unsoloed there. Let's jump back into AudioScope now and expand that out and take a listen.
It's after night.
Is there something you're noticing with these drums? Yeah. This is one of the coolest things that AudioScope does. It actually detects when a particular track is peaking. Now, here in GarageBand, it can be really ridiculously hard to work out if a track's peaking because there's no real peak indicator. Yeah, you got your little orange and your red bits, but if you look at this drum in isolation, this Anders drum, and take a look and a listen, that doesn't look like it's peaking, does it? But the issue with GarageBand is if you do export and it is peaking even though you can't see it, it's going to add auto limiting or auto normalization, which gives you that pumping sound that you really don't want. So we can actually use AudioScope to fix this. Let's tap back into here. We'll open this one up. We'll go back to our mix option. And if we bring these drums down in the mix and maybe put the vocals up because they were a bit quiet, we can actually very quickly adjust these and get ourselves a better mix in here. So let's put it like that and take a listen.
You better get down on your knees and pray. If you're not too careful.
There you go. So the drums are now no longer peaking. We don't have that little red light, so we're good to go. So it's a really great way to identify if any of your tracks are going to cause problems. And yeah, let's have these vocals up a little louder. I think they can go up to about there. So it's a really cool interface. There's lots of cool things we can do. There's so much more. I'm just going to show you a couple of little things to finish off with here, and then I'm going to leave you to go and explore because I think you'll find a lot of cool things you can do with AudioScope. Two more cool things I want to show you that we promised at the start. One is side chaining. So yes, we can use side chaining compression. This isn't the sort of song that you'd normally side chain, but just to show you how this works, we can grab this bass and go to the compressor here, and we can change the compression here just like we would with the guitar that we did earlier, but we can also hit the side chain button and say chain this to a different track. Because AudioScope brings all these tracks into the one interface, we can use them in conjunction, which is pretty cool. So if we tap on the drums here, that can actually side chain the compression with the kick drum. When that drum kicks in, our bass is going to actually side chain. So play around with that, especially if you're into more of the electronic music. Side chaining is pretty cool. one final thing. I did mention that you can basically use this to turn your whole mix up and down. Now, I showed you how you could adjust the panning of your mix here. You can even add, there's one extra thing here in the mix bar. You can hit the stereo button here. You've got a stereo widener. So say if I wanted my vocals here, my vocals to be a little bit wider, we can hit the stereo button and we can actually widen those up, or you can narrow them right down so they'll sit either right in the middle or on the left or the right. So that's a very, very cool option built in, which is a bit like Wider from Infected Mushrooms. So see how many different plugins you're getting in one here. But the one final thing I wanted to show you is here in the mix bar. Again, you can tap on the mix bar option there. You can hit this up arrow or down arrow and everything moves. So everything you've got in your mix will actually move up and down. You probably also noticed that you've got mix A, mix B, mix C. So you can do multiple mixes and then A, B, C, compare them. Here you've got grouping options. You can protect it so you're not going to be able to move things around. There's too much, isn't there? So there's a full manual, there's a heap of videos, again linked in the description, but I'll just show you this final thing, which is that when we're mixing our track, instead of using the FX hack or anything else, we can actually turn the whole mix up and down by hitting play and hitting these buttons. Everything down, everything up. There's so much more under the hood here. I've only scratched the surface, as I keep saying in this video, but I do highly recommend this app. Paul from 4Pockets makes amazing stuff. This is no exception. There's a heap of options in here. You're going to find yourself using this all the time, even if you use it as just a compressor. The visual compressor in here and the way that you can actually utilize this, I'll be throwing this on all my vocals, even if I don't want to use the full effects here of AudioScope. So there you have it, AudioScope from 4Pockets. It is an amazing app. Check it out in the App Store. And if you've got comments, if you've got questions, throw them in the comments section below. And I'll see you next time.